This program is brought to you by Ignite TV. Now you're in command. Visit Rogers.com for more details.
Welcome to Her Story, the journey to winning a seat at the table. I'm your host, Mary J. Murray, and this program is a series of conversations with inspirational women with amazing stories to share. And stories are a tapestry of lifelong experiences and events. Let's explore the journey. My guest today is Meghan Robertson, and she is a drywaller, and this has been her passion for about 19 years. And Meghan owns her own business, Meg's Drywall, and there's a story behind that. She also mentors women in trades, a specialty of hers, and she has received many awards for her business. The most recent is the Business Excellence Award for Skilled Trades in 2021. Owen Sound is Meghan's hometown, and with that, she explores with her family the parks, the waterfront, the small shops, and thoroughly is passionate about her community. In doing so, she volunteers as a way of giving back. And some of her activities are volunteering on committees with the City of Owen Sound and also with Elect Her, which is a nonpartisan organization that supports women who are thinking about or running for municipal office. Now, Meghan being in skilled trades, at one time there was not a seat at the table for Meghan, so she simply made one. We often see very accomplished women in leadership roles, but we know that leadership can emerge at any stage and at any age, and this is Meghan's journey. Welcome, Meghan, and thank you for taking the time from your very busy life to have this conversation, because you do have an amazing story to share.
Thank you so much, Mary Jane.
Well, let's reflect back to your roots. Owen Sound being where you grew up, and what were some of the influences that our community provided to you that impacted your life?
So my parents came from Toronto to Owen Sound. My mom was one of the managers for diagnostic imaging when the hospital first opened. So I moved here at 6 years old. Growing up here, you know, it was a small town. We enjoyed all the outdoor activities there are. But it wasn't until I left and came back that I realized how much I loved it here. So my journey in construction actually started very different from what others, I think, would say. I actually quit college because it wasn't for me. And when I came home, I was working in a local restaurant, and my dad actually sat me down one night and told me that either I join the Army, I go back to school, or I find a career that can support my life. And so lo and behold, I actually went out for dinner with my then boyfriend and his boss. And his boss told me that he was looking for laborers for his drywall company. And I said, well, I could do that. And he actually said, you can't do that, you're a girl. And I looked at him and said, well, actually, I'm a girl, I can do anything. So I disagree with that statement. And so he told me that if I could come in and lift a box of mud, I was hired. So I actually went in and I lifted a box of mud, and I carried 25 of those boxes of mud up a flight of stairs to the second story of the house. And that was my beginning into this trade.
Now, how much does a box of mud weigh?
About 50 pounds.
And you did 25 of those?
Yeah, so when I hire women, I generally tell them that you're going to be sore for the first little while. Your muscles have to get used to that motion and that extra lifting that we do. So when I think back, I just think, how did I do that? I must have had some real passion and adrenaline to show them that I could do it.
Was there some sports activity in your childhood that actually built that stamina?
I don't think so. Like I was active. I played baseball and I was, on the St. Mary's basketball team and volleyball team. But once I hit 18, I didn't really play any sports. So I think it was more my drive to prove them wrong than anything else.
Well, that very strong will can overcome so many things. So that was your early influences, and that was one of the pivotal moments that said, yes, I can do this, and I'm going to prove you wrong. And so you started into the skilled trades in drywalling. And what is it about drywalling that just really sparks? I can see that spark in your eyes right now. What is it?
I don't know. I just love it. We actually joke about that all the time. It's a really hands-on business. So, when I go into schools and I talk to high school students, I always tell them I wish I would have known that I was more of a hands-on type of person in high school, because I probably would have maybe been a carpenter or something else, knowing that I love that skill set. Drywall is really actually an art, because it's all about the detail and making sure things are perfect. So I think it's that, like, every day my job changes, even though it's still the same techniques. You're doing different jobs, different styles of work, different shapes even when you're doing drywall. So it always keeps us interesting. I mean, none of us like sanding when we're drywallers. So don't get me wrong, there is a part of my job that I don't like, but I go to work every day and I enjoy what I do.
One of the comments that you had made was that you felt that women brought a different eye to detail in the work. And because drywall, mudding, sanding, and putting those walls together, they need to be perfect.
Yeah. So I was actually told very early on that I would be good at what I do because I was a woman, because we pay more attention to those fine details. So I found that really interesting that was said early on. And I have been told that throughout my career, that some of my work is nicer than some men's because of my eye for detail.
Well, this is a very male-dominated field. And breaking into that might have had some challenges for you. How hard was it for you to find your voice?
Incredibly difficult. I can tell you still to this day on job sites, men doubt me. They undervalue my skills. In the very beginning, there was a lot of sexual harassment and catcalling, and I didn't shut them down because I was new and I was the only woman. But what I learned was showing them that I could do the job stopped all of that. So I actually hired a few women a couple of years ago, and one of them was worried about what would happen on job sites. And the other woman actually said to her, "We don't have to deal with that anymore because Meghan did." And I thought, that's interesting to hear, because I didn't realize it had stopped, because I just don't pay attention to it. It's just been something that I've pushed aside. And I wanted to show my value as a construction worker than be the woman on the job site.
Well, it seems like you might have to develop a little bit of a thick skin at first in order for the comments to just roll away, and that you prove your value by your skill set.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
So at what point did you feel that your voice was actually being heard?
Within the past 3 years, actually. So it hasn't been a long time. When I went out on my own, it was actually after my divorce. So, as a single mom, I was thinking, what do I do with my life now? How do I support my family? And I just said, I'm a drywaller. And in the beginning, I decided to name it after myself, because a lot of people locally know me as the woman drywaller. So I thought, what better than to name it Meg's Drywall? And I actually had a lot of backlash from men about that, saying that they didn't think it was the right thing to do. I also had a lot of positive feedback from, women realtors and just general people in the community who said, there are times where I don't want a man in my house alone. I would feel more comfortable about having a woman doing my work. There are single women out there who would feel more comfortable having another woman in their house doing the work instead of a man. So it has been an interesting journey. There are a lot of people out there who just love that I try to encourage women in trades, and they think that's a great value. And I actually laugh at that because I just think we should encourage women in trades. We're 50% of the population. We can do the same amount of work and the same kind of work. And we are lacking in the workforce in trades. I mean, there is not enough workers, so we need to encourage more women.
Well, I believe the percentage is only about 4% of women in trades.
Oh, see, I've heard 9 in Canada and 10 in the States, but Alberta makes that higher because they have actually encouraged more women in trades from the oil fields and the building sectors there. So Ontario sort of lags behind in women in trades.
Well, it's really important that we have a gender balanced skill set in the trades, because each gender is going to bring a different eye or a different experience and different techniques. But what women have to contribute is essential. And you have actually illustrated some of those benefits, not for clients, in terms of having a woman in their house doing the mudding and the taping and the sanding. But there's a reason why you called it Meg's Drywall, more so than just highlighting your name. And that has to do with the broader ripple effect that has.
Yeah, I always talk to people about the economics of women in trades. And a lot of people don't look at it like that. So in our area, in Grey Bruce, we live in a low income area. It's known in all our economic statistics. So in my mind, I look at it, if I can get more of those single moms working in a trade, there's more food on their kids' tables. There's better education because those kids are under less stress and less mental health issues because their home is comfortable. And that gives us better adults in the future. So we could actually create a space in Grey Bruce where we have better citizens, better healthy citizens, because of encouraging women to do something different. I can work around my kids' school schedule if I need to. So, I don't have to worry about after school care if I don't need to. I don't work at night, so I'm getting those nights with my kids. And I would love to see more women try different things. Like, there's lots of trades out there that are so exciting. I mean, I think about doing tile in the future and, branching out to doing more painting, because we've already started doing that. But even in my own home, I have older women tell me all the time, oh, I couldn't do that. And I think, yes, you can. Even in my own home, there are things that I try that 10 years ago, I would never have tried. I parched my basement walls because I wanted to seal them better. And I'm not a mason, but I've seen the skill set. I know who to talk to about it. And I just try it. So there's no fear in trying those new things. And if I fail, I just get an expert in.
And we do have experts in our community to rely on, but it will always be more comforting when we have more women as those experts that we can go to. I also understand that you take co-op students as well, young girls who are in high school. Maybe they're not quite so young anymore, but in high school, so that they co-op with you, so that they have the opportunity to get a feel for the field.
Yes, so I had a wonderful co-op student last year. She has decided to stay on with me this year before she goes to college in the fall. I've also got to do Women Try the Trades Night through the Ontario Youth Apprenticeship Program in some of the high schools. And there is a local teacher who gets me to speak to her civics class all the time. So, I always say the more we can talk to them when they're younger, the more they'll see that there's a possibility of something different. I remember in high school, in every trades presentation, it was always men. And, if there wasn't COVID, I would be trying to get a program going to high schools to do a presentation in the gym to all the women in the school, because the Women Try the Trades Night only bring out a small percentage. But if we could be talking to all the women in the school from grade 9 to grade 12, they could really see that there are different options out there. I have a friend who's an insulator, who's a woman. She's been doing it as long as I have. And, I'd love to get her in to talk. And there's a few different women in trades in the area who I know would love to just show them what we do and show them that it is possible. Because I think a lot of the times it's oh, I can't do it, or, I'm not sure if I could do it. So showing them that someone does do it. That's one of the reasons why I created my social medias, so that people could actually see me using the tools and see me doing the jobs, instead of just thinking that maybe my employees do it. But instead we show them, look, these are the tools we use. This is the things that we do. And we always have fun on jobs. So I find that's one of the biggest difference between women and men. I've had more comments from homeowners about how much fun we sound like we're having than before, when I worked with all men. So it's a really nice change.
Well, I think it's really important that high school students, girls, understand, and maybe even women who are going into college as well, to understand that this is a very viable career path. It's not your typical range. It's breaking the mold. But as you mentioned, this puts food on the table. This builds stable lives. This changes lives going forward in terms of how women can balance their life, their home life, their children, and have an economic, stable income to move their lives forward.
Yeah, it's something that I think is really important for women to see. I mean, even growing up, the general jobs for women were nurses and teachers and, administration. So I honestly didn't know what to do. When I went to college, I just went because I thought it was what I should do. And when I started drywalling and I realized what it was really like, I thought, wow, like why isn't there an education in the school to show us all the different jobs there are? I mean, my mom working in diagnostic imaging, I know there's more than just nurses. I know there's ultrasound techs and all these different careers, but I didn't really even know what a drywaller was until I started. I didn't know that somebody actually did that to the walls. You don't see that part. And actually, when my co-op student, when I actually met her mom first, who is a real estate agent and a host of some of these shows, she actually said her daughter wanted to be an electrician. And I had said to her, well, in drywall, we get to see a lot of the stages of the house. We see the framing, we see the electrical. So I said, if she wanted to even come for a day, let her know that she's welcome to come. And so when she called me about wanting the co-op, I thought, that's awesome. And then once she started, she said, oh, this is okay. And I said, well, I'm a drywaller because it has to be warm. So in construction, you have to deal with the elements. There's a lot of coldness, there's a lot of terrible weather, but when you're a drywall taper especially, it has to be warm for the mud to dry. So it's not such a bad trade to be in. Your fingers don't freeze, you're not always cold and wet. So she really enjoyed it, and I'm glad to see her continue this year until she goes to college.
Well, what an amazing experience. And, quite frankly, I hadn't thought of the elements, because we often see construction workers and we can't tell whether they're men or women because they're bundled from head to toe, and all their safety gear as well. So yes, being inside where it's dry and warm, I can really understand that as well. But I think that there's another side to your passion as well, and that is your commitment to your community and how you have married the two passions for construction and for politics. So tell us a little bit about that other side.
So my family has always been political. We've talked about it at the kitchen table, but I honestly didn't know that I would enjoy it until 2014 came along and our local mayor asked me to be his campaign manager. And I actually didn't know even what that meant. And so he told me to go home and do some research, and I decided to do it. And it was probably the most exciting 2 months that other than working, that I had in a volunteer career. And so once I was finished that, I actually asked him, what can I do? Like, how can I use my voice? And he recommended that I join a city committee. And at that point, I had no idea what that even meant, or if I had the knowledge to do that. And so it was actually before all the committees amalgamated, and they had the Heritage Housing Committee. And so I looked and I said, well, I could do that. I know about housing. I love heritage housing. I actually live in a house that was built by Tom Thompson's parents in 1910 when he retired. So when they retired from Leith and moved into town. So I love heritage housing. And it was the best experience. It was so great learning some of the ins and outs of the city. And it has expanded me to go on to the Community Services Committee and now the Operations Committee. I think it's really important for everyone to give back. You know, I follow social media and I like to read the comments, and I always see people making comments of their opinions. And I think I wish more people would use that voice and join a committee, because the things that I've got to speak about, or even decisions that are being made, that you can change the way they're being made by your voice. It's so important.
Well, I think as I mentioned just off camera, is finding your voice and having your voice heard are two different things. And so the challenge is getting your voice heard. And you're feeling now that your voice is being heard in the trades. And you're feeling now that your voice is being heard in your volunteer activities.
Yeah, I can tell you the first time I sat on a city committee, I probably didn't speak for the first 3 meetings. I didn't know what to say. I was nervous and scared. But the longer you sit on those committees, the more comfortable you feel and the more open you become to having a voice. So I really enjoy that part of it. I mean, even now, the first 2 operations meetings, I don't think I said anything, because it was a new committee and new things that I was learning about, you know, the wastewater treatment plant and some of the ways the city of Owen Sound actually works. So, you know, you listen and you learn, and then you gain your voice through that knowledge.
Well, I think what is a very important point, and that is you listened. And you listened for 2 or 3 meetings to get a feel of the landscape before you felt that you were comfortable enough to use your voice. And I think there's a balance here between listening and then with knowledge, asking questions and using your voice. And I think, I don't want to be sexist in this comment, but I often think that women tend to hang back a little bit and listen before they start to jump into the conversation.
Yeah, it's actually probably my favorite thing. So I am also involved in federal politics, and I love going door knocking. And people will tell you, I actually don't like talking to the people who are in the same belief system as I am for politics. I like talking to the people who have different beliefs so that I can listen to what they have to say and I can hear their voice, because it is important. I mean, if we don't listen to what people have to say, our opinion doesn't matter, because it's just one person. The more people that you can get their opinions from, the more consensus you have across the board.
Well, with your leadership, what do you hope will change?
I hope that we see more women in trades, for sure. I mean, there's such a lack of workers in every industry across the board. We know everyone's struggling, but in trades, I mean, when my 2 young boys were born, I never in a million years wanted them to work in a trade. I wanted them to, you know, go off, be a police officer, do something really good. And now when I think about it, we have such a lack of workers that, I mean, maybe it is what they should do. They might be making more than a doctor in the future because we don't have anyone to do those jobs. So if I could encourage more women to get into trades and more women to get into politics, there's all these jobs where there's no equality. And until we rise up and become equals and work together as a community, we don't have all those voices heard.
Well, I have a quote. You may recognize this quote. You have to make sure that you are your own cheerleader. And I saw this throughout your conversation, how you kept saying, I can do it. So you were actually being your own cheerleader, and just trying to make everything better than the last time, so that you're always working hard. And I think that really speaks well to anyone who is trying something new. I can do it, be your own cheerleader. And I think that kind of sums up what I was hearing from this conversation. And I think for anyone who is thinking about trying to do something different and maybe a little nervous about it, is that be your own cheerleader. Keep yourself going. So the other thing I mentioned was that when our time was starting to wind down, I had two little pop questions for you. And one of them is, what brings you joy?
Well, I would have to say family. Coming home and enjoying time with my family. It's actually the one thing in 2022 that I'm really going to try to work more toward, is spending more time with my family.
And we're going through a really difficult time for this past few years, 2 years with the pandemic. But, there's always ups and downs in our life. Do you have a saying or a mantra that gets you through some of the tough times?
You know what? I live every day with a positive attitude. So I wake up, I get up, I go, I'm happy. And as long as I stay positive, everything is good. So it's not that I have a mantra that I use, it's that I am a positive person. So you will always see a smile on my face, like 95% of the time. It's very rare that you'll see me upset. So it's just keeping positive.
Well, I think one of the things that I've learned from you today is the fact that I would say that your philosophy has been, I can do it. And from the very first time you sat around that dinner table in a restaurant and said, well, I can do it. And then taking on your own business, well, I can do it. And then getting engaged in your community and in politics, well, I can do it. So there you are, Meghan. We're going to be looking forward to more of the adventures that you have with I Can Do It. And thank you so much for taking the time today to have this conversation. I have enjoyed it thoroughly. It's just lovely to talk to you.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're so welcome. And please stay tuned for next time on Her Story for another amazing journey.
Call the Rogers TV viewer response line, email us, or connect with us on social media.
Focus better.
Partner better.
Sleep better.
Breathe better.
Love better. Work better. Friend better. Unwind better.
Everything gets better when you get active. Who are you?
My grandfather was a Ghostbuster.
This thing is real?